Welcome to HCC 50 Years and Counting. I'm Todd Duplantis. Houston Community College is celebrating its 50th anniversary. The celebration is in 2021. And to mark the celebration, we're taking a look back at the history of the college throughout the years as told through the eyes of faculty, staff, and administrators. Joining me now, Dr. Margaret Ford-Fisher, the president of HCC Online. Thanks for being here.
You are so welcome. Delighted to be here. It is a wonderful time to celebrate, isn't it?
It sure is. And I've been talking with a number of folks who've been here for many years, and you've been here since 1983.
Oh, yes, and it's been a wonderful journey, I tell you. It's so fascinating because I was on the faculty at Wichita State University. I was an assistant professor there and then came to Houston to work on my doctorate and completed my doctorate at the University of Houston, and then got a job here at Houston Community College, and it was so fascinating, all of the wonderful experiences here and the tremendous people as well.
Now, did the college have different goals back then? I know vocational schools were looked at differently. Community colleges were looked at differently as well.
Well, I don't think the goals changed so much. Academics has always been, as it was referred to then, as the cash cow for the Houston Community College. So we had a number of students who were enrolling here who were transferring to various universities. But in addition to that, there were the vocational training programs and the adult education program as well. And what was so fascinating was that we shared a board with the Houston Independent School District.
I remember that. Right.
Absolutely.
Out of the school district.
Absolutely, yes, we did. And so it was really great. And I have to tell you, having been at Wichita State University, and experiencing all of the pomp and circumstance associated with graduation ceremonies there. And then my first graduation ceremony here at Houston Community College was really rather fascinating because the graduation ceremony was held at the Sam Houston Coliseum.
I remember the Coliseum very well, where they had many concerts.
Many concerts there also. And, everyone marched in very, very properly and so forth. And then all of a sudden, once everybody was seated, you started smelling fried chicken and so forth. And people had brought their meals. They were going to eat because they knew that it was going to be a long ceremony. And then to hear all of the relatives cheering when their loved ones were recognized for their degrees and certificates was just really magnificent.
Lots changed with the graduation, and a lot's changed with Houston Community College. Let's talk about your first role here and how that's guided you, because you've not only, you're the president of HCC Online, but you were also the president of the Northeast College for some time. But tell us about the first role.
Well, it's fascinating because I had been involved in television for a number of years, and it was always an avocation for me. And so I was invited to come and join HCC to be the staff and instructional developer, which meant that I was going to work with all of the faculty in the training of the faculty members to demonstrate the appropriate behaviors and working with the students in the classroom. And so I went out with Jay. Jay worked here.
So you were a trainer, more or less.
I was more or less a trainer. And it was so interesting because it was one of those soft money positions, and I accepted the position thinking, well, I'll probably be at HCC for about 6 months or so as a trainer. And then I was hired to work full time. I was hired as an English professor here. So I moved to the Arts and Humanities Division, and then shortly thereafter, I became a department chair, in fact, a co-department head of freshman English, then a division chair after that. And then with the restructuring of HCC and the changeover from Mr. Whiteley as president of HCC, and those were fabulous years, so many things to recall from those. But I then became the Dean of Instruction at the Northwest College, which was also very magnificent. And because of what I detected at the time of being some bureaucracy and being able to get paperwork processed and some things through the system, I applied for the job as Associate Vice Chancellor. I got that job and came to the district. I was at WA Drive with the rest of the administrators and was in that role, and then was invited to become the Acting Vice Chancellor of Instruction. So it was an interim Vice Chancellor, and then after that for 2 years, I then became the interim president of the Northeast College, and then in January of 1997, moved into the presidency there. And there I served for 20 years, and it was a wonderful 20 years. But this journey of being the president of the online college is also magnificent because it opens up the avenue for us to serve so many more Houstonians to help them get certificates and degrees. So I'm just really delighted.
Well, a couple of things. First, the online college it's a seventh college for HCC, so
Yes.
it's a brand new thing. But one thing I'm hearing with a lot of employees that have been here for a while, you yourself, Dr. Fenna Garza, who was a president.
Oh my, yes.
Dr. Zachary Hodges, who's the
Yes.
president of Northwest. Everyone seems to have started through the ranks with HCC, and it's given you the opportunity to grow professionally and as an individual to move up to help students along the way.
Yes, it really has, and it's so magnificent because, you know, when your heart is on serving students and you understand our system, which is not easy to get to learn. I mean, it really is a complex system, multi-campus college district, so many moving parts. And you look at the people who've been here for a while, they are really attuned to what is needed in order to serve our students. And there has always been this familial, this family environment. In fact, we used to have all kinds of gatherings where everybody would get together and celebrate. So there was a bond that was created with your peers, and you also extended that to the students as well. So in addition to Dr. Fenna Garza and Dr. Hodges, we had Dr. Sue Cox, Dr. Patricia Williamson, Dr. Sylvia Ramos. All of them would have tremendous stories to tell about HCC and how we developed into a premier institution. And in fact, when you see how we were birthed as an institution, in all of the many locations where we were, we didn't have the marvelous campus facilities that we have now.
Not at all.
No, we did not. We were operating out of storefronts. We partnered with HISD where we used their classrooms, and it was so fascinating because when I was teaching English, I had classes just all over the city of Houston and didn't mind. My office was the trunk of my car. And so we moved about. We were really very mobile. And so it was so interesting because at some of the schools where I taught, we had to share the blackboard, and we would have to take our own chalk. And we were told, you don't erase this information and you don't write on this side of the board, you can only use this side. But we grew, we were able to teach our students, we were able to see our students become great successes. And so it's just that passion that has always been there, and we've always had dedicated faculty, excellent faculty, committed staff to ensuring that HCC would maintain its rightful place as being Houston's community college to serve all of the residents who are interested in certificate training or degrees to transfer.
Well, one thing I know it's very special to you is the dual credit program, and we're going to talk more about that in a few moments when we come back, because I want to get your take on when that all started.
Okay,
as well.
wonderful.
Thanks for joining us on HCC 50 Years and Counting. I'm Todd Duplantis. Joining me today is Dr. Margaret Ford Fisher, the president of HCC Online. We'll be back with more after this.
HCC. So many reasons, so little tuition. Register today at hccs.edu/now.
Welcome back to HCC 50 Years and Counting. I'm Todd Duplantis, and we're joined today by Dr. Margaret Ford Fisher. Thanks for being here with us.
Delighted.
You're currently the president of HCC Online, but I want to talk to you about something that's very big for the college today. And you were around when this began, the dual credit program. Maybe you can explain that and how it got started.
Well, it's so fascinating. We had always been offering some courses in a very, very limited fashion at Scarborough High School. And, it was so interesting that there were more and more individuals who wanted to become students in that program. And so, but it wasn't widely implemented in the HCC. So as it turns out, when I became dean of instruction at the Northwest College, I received a telephone call from a lady who was moving here from Midland, Texas. And she said she was going to be moving here and she wanted to have dual credit for her daughter who would be enrolling in public school, and that her son was able to get dual credit at the school in Midland, and she was wondering what she could do. Well, at that time, there were no rules, we did not know, and so forth. So I conducted all of the research that was required, called around, I wrote a book, I developed the implementation guidelines for us, invited the coordinating board to come. We had forums at Central College and Heinlein Theater, and we were able to get the dual credit program approved by our board and established. And one of the first school districts that we partnered with was the Spring Branch School District, where I gave a presentation with a man by the name of Buster Key to their faculty and their parent-teacher association. And the parent-teacher association chair said at that time, we want that for our students. So they immediately at Memorial High School began offering dual credit, and I think we had well over 200 students who were enrolled that next term. Initially
Wow.
at Memorial High School. And then we presented the plan to Cy-Fair Independent School District and to the superintendent there.
Were
He
you looking to
embraced it.
start small before you got to HISD and build a success?
No, we implemented it throughout, but since
Wow.
I was dean of instruction at the Northwest,
You
that's
went
where
with
my
all your
focus
districts,
was.
sure.
And the opportunity was available in district as well because it had been approved by our board. And so, but what I found was that it began to grow. It became a phenomenon. And it was so fascinating because when I came to the district as Associate Vice Chancellor and then to the presidency of Northeast, that's when I began sharing it with all of the principals on the northeast side of town. And I remember a conversation that I had with Mr. Wesley, who was the principal of Booker T. Washington at the time, and I told him about to dual credit, and he was a little bit reluctant initially until, of course, I decided I'm going to send you a fax of all of the students who are enrolled at Memorial Senior High School, and then you tell me what you think. He saw the numbers and he decided I want that for my students. The dual credit program has really made opportunities available for so many students. I was invited to speak at the Oxford Roundtable for Community College Presidents, and that's where I distributed copies of my book, and one gentleman who was there wrote a book that was kind of like a follow-up to my book on the dual credit phenomenon. And then because I recognized the importance of dual credit, I began sending my book out to all of the various other institutions so that their deans and their presidents could have it. I look back now in retrospect and I thought, well, that was really a very good deed, although if I had gone into consulting at that time, I would be a very wealthy woman now.
Well, did you know it was going to take off as much as it did now? Because it's offered just about all across the district right
Yes,
now. And we're talking HCC's district, which stretches for 300 and some odd miles across the district.
I had no idea that it was going to take off the way it did. I knew that it was something that was really critically important and badly needed. My book was published in 1996, and it was entitled High School Students Earning College Credit, a guide to creating dual credit programs. And that book has been used, and it's still available online. The publisher was Corwin Press of my book. They immediately, when I sent them the manuscript, they immediately accepted it and decided that they wanted to publish it. And I'm really happy because so many young people, as I mentioned before, have now been able to advance their lives and save money and to be able to not only become gainfully employed in great jobs as a result of expediting that career pathway through high school with dual credit, so they don't have to go through the hurdle of taking those courses over again once they graduate from high school and go on to a college or university, because essentially they're the same. But what we did, we met very often with the school administrators in Katy, in Spring Branch, Buster Key, wherever he is, bless his soul, he was the one who was helping to lead the charge in ensuring that we could get the message pushed out to so many people whose children could benefit from dual credit. And so I'm delighted that it has really made a difference in turning around schools now. For example, with Sam Houston High School as an example, when Ms. Jane Crump became the interim principal there, because Sam Houston was cited to be closed because of some of the performance issues, she decided that she wanted to focus on dual credit for her students, and we worked closely with her. And what we have found, not saying that there's anything wrong with advanced placement, but I got a number of telephone calls as Dean of Instruction from parents who were saying that their children did not earn a sufficiently high score on the advanced placement test. What could we do? Well, there's nothing that we could do at that time, but if the children were allowed to take both dual credit and or opt for advanced placement, or both, in some instances, then they would have the benefit of moving on into their college program. So it's just been, I think, a blessing for so many others.
That's a way of getting around the SAT and all of that, or you're talking advanced. What type of testing are you talking about?
Well, with the dual credit, what we're talking about is for students earning college credit at the same time that they're earning their high school credit. And that meant that we were going to look at the curricula to ensure that the curricula were equivalent, and that all of the standards that were in place for the college would be in place for the dual credit students at the high school to meet their objectives as well. And so that's why that intense series of meetings was so critically important with the high school teachers, counselors, administrators, as well as with our college teachers, counselors, and administrators. And so we worked closely with our faculty as well as with the faculty and staff at the school districts as well. So what we're talking about is students meeting our standards to enroll in a college level course. We would apply all of the criteria associated with our accrediting agency in terms of the course meeting the required guidelines, the instructor who would be teaching the course, having those criteria that would be required. And when we start talking about the GRE, the SAT, and all of those tests, though that's completely different. So the students would have to take those as they then prepare to advance on into another level of education, whether it's at a university or some other level of training.
And of course, the dual credit program has taken off, and it's certainly now it's looking to be some of the bread and butter of HCC, because we offer all these students across the district an opportunity to get that college education along with their high school degree. We appreciate you being here in the show, Dr. Margaret Ford Fisher. Congratulations on the HCC Online. I know you guys are taking off, and we look forward to having you here in the future.
Thank you.
We have more of HCC 50 years and counting coming your way. Stay tuned. I'm Todd Duplantis. I'll see you in a few moments.
We have academic programs that help students get from high school into a university. And the data is very clear that students that take the path of a community college finish in far higher numbers than students that start straight into a university experience. Our students can achieve a baccalaureate degree in multiple fields from the universities in the area without ever leaving Houston Community College.
HCC. So many classes, so little tuition. Register today at hccs.edu/now.
Welcome back to HCC 50 Years and Counting. I'm Todd Duplantis. Thanks again for joining us. With me now is Dr. Maya Durnovo. Thanks for being here on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Let's talk about how long you've been with Houston Community College and your roles since you've been here. You're currently the Chief Entrepreneurial Officer. We're going to talk more about that in a second.
Right.
Where did you start and how long ago?
So I started 44 years ago, and I actually started on a grant, interestingly enough, because I work with a lot of grants right now, but I started on a grant, on a TRIO grant, And I worked on that for about a year and then moved on to continuing education, and really was the only one at HCC that was doing continuing education out of one location.
Now, continuing education, that wasn't a big thing back then. It is now.
Right,
But what
right.
was it like then trying to launch that?
Well, it was very small, and we just started with a handful of courses and trying to find faculty and just having one or two maybe locations to offer them. But we got off to a pretty good start.
What courses were the ones that you were starting with, the ones that people were interested in back then?
Actually, it was culinary programs.
Was
and
it
we
really?
had we had a local instructor. I don't think she's here anymore, but she started teaching at the Bel Air High School and was teaching cooking classes. That was the very first one that we had.
Did they have a kitchen they were working in then?
Yeah,
or-
they had a very small kitchen, and they had a lot of women that were coming in the early evening to learn how to cook. It
Wow.
was fun.
So was it geared at women at that point?
No, it was always geared for anybody that wanted to register, but of course, more women were interested at that time. Of course, today I think you're going to find much more diversity.
Absolutely, especially
Yeah.
Houston being such a foodie city. But back then,
It-
one of our
it-
first CE courses was culinary. What were some of the other ones that were popular, and how did you start rolling things out with that?
Well, we actually had a little bit of a survey to find out what people were interested in. So there were art classes, there were some business classes, trying to remember some of the others, some sewing classes, some gardening, things along that line, less so that they were more leisure, whereas right now they tend to be a lot more instructional as far as trying to develop some skills. But then they were a little more leisure oriented.
Was there the opportunity back then? We're talking in the early 70s back then, but
We're talking in the mid-70s, yeah.
But was there the opportunity back then to further your career with certifications as there are now?
Not at that time, no.
So
not-
this was more leisure learning in a way.
This was literally leisure learning right at the very beginning when we started offering them. Yeah, it was interesting.
After CE, did you take other routes before you were able to get into the entrepreneurial field? And why don't you tell me about that in a second? But
So I worked as a campus director for a couple of years, and then I went on and got my doctorate. And then I became the dean of students, and I worked in student services. And then from there, I became dean of workforce, and I was working at the Northwest College. And that's actually where I started writing grants, and that was a skill that I developed doing some grants for the horticulture department. And that was what led me to actually do the very first grant to start the entrepreneurial initiatives. At the time, 10 years ago, Dr. Spangler, the chancellor, had an innovation grant, which was $100,000. Well, I won one of those to develop the first Center for Entrepreneurship. And that really was the beginning of what we now have as a very large and robust entrepreneurial program.
And the program you have now involves a business plan competition, and
It actually started with a business plan.
so that's I was
Interestingly,
going to ask. How did it start? What was the first part?
That was the very first part. Was we started with a business plan competition because we had a community partner that wanted to revive a part of the city. It was actually the North Spring branch. The economy there was declining, and they wanted to do something to impact the local economy, and that's how the business plan competition was born, and it exists to this very day, very, very successfully at the Northwest College. But on the basis of that business plan and the partnerships that we developed, we won the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Initiative, which was huge. We were the fourth college in the country to win that program. So we've had it for 9 years now, almost 10. We've graduated almost 700 small businesses.
Wow.
That have really made an impact on the local economy.
And I've met a number of these folks, a lot of these business
Right,
owners.
right,
They've been
right.
on my shows
Yes,
throughout the
yes,
last few
yes.
years, and incredible stories. And a lot of them say they've heard about it, and they sometimes they want to just get a business plan together to go to the bank and get a loan, or
right.
they just want to increase their business and make this a viable option so they can go into it full time.
Right. Because what it does does. It gives them the ability to step away from the business and work on the business rather than working in the business. And that ability to step away gives them a chance to really decide where are they going to go next, how are they going to grow it, or how are they going to maybe take a different route. And I think that becomes a very valuable tool for them.
When we're going back to the mid-'70s, did you forecast any of this? I mean, in the '70s, Houston was dependent on the oil industry. It lived and died, and we famously died in the early '80s for the oil industry.
Right.
Did you see this entrepreneurial thing growing in Houston? I mean, we always had that spirit here, but did you see that happening?
Absolutely not. No, and I think that was part of the risk-taking that we took when we did that very first grant. We really didn't know where it was going to go, so that's a little bit of the entrepreneurial journey, and actually it was for myself because I had no idea where it would take me, but it enabled us to do something for the economy, but it also enabled the college to stretch its offerings and its vision and its ability to do something that it had never done before. And I think we're one of the first colleges in the country to have such a robust program. As a matter of fact, this past year, I'm very proud to say we won an award from the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurs for having a college of excellence in entrepreneurship. So I'm really proud of that because I think we've developed something very valuable for the local community and for the local economy.
And I know you have had some very viable businesses that have gone through. Can you think of a couple that you can mention going back over the last 10 years that you want to throw out there?
Well, what comes to mind is the Three Brothers Bakery.
Right.
And Janice, the owner, tells an incredible story of how she developed a whole business plan. And it was only after the disaster of Harvey that she had to go and get a loan. And she was able to get that loan because she had that business plan with her. That made the critical difference for her to continue to not only survive but thrive in her business. Her story is remarkable.
And you know, a lot of businesses would have given up. A lot of them did give up after Harvey, but you see someone like that who was able to get some incentive to go on because, and they'll credit Houston Community College for doing that.
Exactly.
As far as we've talked about where it was back in the mid-'70s, where you got in the '90s working with Dr. Spangler, if you could project the next 5-10 years, I know you have to do plans for those, what would you see where this is going? What's going to be the next step for entrepreneurial initiatives here at HCC?
Well, I think it's going to be more of it because it makes such an impact for the economy. I think we're going to be doing more innovation, more new technology, because that's the direction that the economy is going. So the more that we can contribute and become the seed or the ground where we can find new ideas, new technologies, and new solutions for social problems, that's the social entrepreneurism that I'm especially interested, because I think students would be very interested in learning how to come up with those solutions and make those into businesses. I think that's very, very exciting, and it makes a very significant contribution. That's what the college is all about, right? We're making a contribution through education, through training, through the economy.
You kind of go back to what community colleges should be about in the first place.
Exactly.
Dr. Maya Durnovo, Chief Entrepreneurial Officer for Houston Community College, thank you for being here and sharing some of this history and your current thoughts.
Well,
Thanks
thank
for being
you.
here. And thank you for joining us. HCC 50 years and counting. We're celebrating a 50th anniversary, a birthday in 2021. We'll have more shows coming up. Thanks for joining us today.